Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Support for Caregivers Awareness, Learning, and Empowerment, or SCALE program. This is an 8-week webinar series that aims to empower you with practical information and skills by enhancing your self-awareness and focusing on your own needs to improve your mental health and well-being as a caregiver. My name is Cleo Lenemetz, and I will be moderating this webinar today. I'm the program lead for mental health and well-being here at the Ontario Caregiver Organization. Today marks the 5th week of the SCALE 8-week webinar series. This week's topic is focused on becoming a mindful caregiver, which will explore the 7 attitudes of mindfulness and how this can be integrated into your own caregiving role. I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, Michal Goldstein. Michal Goldstein is a registered social worker working at Dynamic Health Clinic in Toronto, where she sees adults for individual, couples, and group counseling. She is also the founder of Creating Connections, a play-based therapy practice in Toronto, where she works with children suffering from mental health and behavioral challenges. She has over a decade of experience working with caregivers to support them in improving their ability to cope with the challenges inherent for caring for a loved one. Michal has developed numerous workshops and support group programs utilizing knowledge of interpersonal neurobiology and mindfulness techniques to support the individuals suffering from physical health, mental health, and parenting challenges. She is passionate about bringing evidence-based practice to the forefront of the clinical social work field. Michal knows both firsthand and from personal experience the challenges that come with caring for a loved one with a physical and mental health illness, and is so grateful for the opportunity to bring more awareness, education, and support to this community. Welcome, Michal. Thank you for joining us again today, and I'll pass things over to you to get things going.
Hi, Cleo. Thanks so much. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can get started. So as Cleo said, today we are going to focus on the aspect of the SCALE program looking at mindfulness practice. So how to incorporate mindfulness practice into your caregiving. Some of you might have heard of mindfulness practice. Some of you might practice mindfulness. In any event, the goal today is to look at some, essential components of mindfulness, but also to see how to incorporate these concepts into your role as a caregiver. So as you may know, every week we have a live webinar, and now at 12 o'clock every Tuesday. We also have online group coaching sessions where we're going to further look at some of the concepts we spoke about. We're going to speak about this week, some of the concepts that we spoke about in previous webinars. The Wednesday evening sessions do have very limited space. There might be 1 or 2 spaces in some of the groups, but the Mondays 12 to 1 do have a few more spots. So I encourage you to join them. The one-to-one phone counseling, which is typically offered, is right now full, but I still encourage you to put yourself on the wait list, because if something does open up, then we will make it available. There are some spots left in the French counseling, so if there is available spots, you can be offered that as well. So please reach out in any event, even if you see that it's full, and we can do our best to try to find the spot for you. So these are just some of the topics we've covered. The previous topics, weeks 1 to 4, are available on the OCO's Vimeo site. They've been recorded. They're there for you to either view for the first time or review, because it's always helpful once you've gained additional information to look back and kind of review some of these concepts. But this week we're going to focus, and in the coming weeks, on, now that we've kind of gained an understanding of what your caregiving journey is about and how the stress that you've been through has affected you, we now want to look at, the emotions of sadness and anger and anxiety. Now we want to look at things that you can incorporate into your role as a caregiver that can help you look at what you're experiencing a bit differently and actually come to experience it a bit differently. So we're just going to review for a second some of the topics we spoke about in week 2 of the webinar. So I apologize if you've been on, but it is important to sort of review it, as it's very relevant to today's webinar on mindfulness. So we talked about in week 2 how stress affects your body, right? How caregiving stress affects you, affects your mind, affects your body. And we spoke about the concept that when there's a trigger in your environment, when there's something that happens to you, then or within your environment, it triggers your mind to release certain hormones that trigger the stress response within your body, right? And these triggers can be an emotional situation, a physical risk situation. Our mind does not differentiate between whether or not we have a physical risk to our body or an emotional risk to ourselves, right? So a stressful situation that you can be in, a stressful interaction with your loved one, with a, somebody in your care team, with your situation, perhaps even just a stressful situation, not as a caregiver, but in your role as an employee or in your role as a parent or a spouse, right? These all trigger our mind to react to the stressor as if it is a physical stressor, as if it is something in our environment that is dangerous for us. And so our body releases these hormones, these stress hormones that activate this system within us to tell us to respond to these stressors. So we're going to look at what the system looks like. We have within us kind of 2 modes, right? Within our nervous system, we have 2 modes, our automatic nervous system. We have the parasympathetic mode and we have the sympathetic mode. The sympathetic nervous system is what's activated when we are in this stress response mode. It could be otherwise known as fight, flight, freeze, right? If you've heard of those terms. And what happens, as you can see in this image, when you're looking at the sympathetic column, what happens in our bodies is that our bodies come into high gear to respond to this stressor. Our pupils are dilated, our heart rate is increased, our airways are, allowing more air to come in, because just like if you're running, being chased by somebody and you're running and all these functions need to come into high gear, so our body responds the same way to an emotional stressor. Okay, that's the important part to really remember. So our sweat glands are increasing secretion and our liver is increasing the creation of glucose and shifting in that way. Our digestive system is decreasing activity, right, which is important for those of you that might experience stomach aches or digestion issues related to your stress. This is why that's happening, because your body is in the stress response mode. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, but when we the opposite to this, when we have our parasympathetic nervous system activated, then our body can go back to this rest and digest mode. And they don't, they are both important for us, but what we want is to ensure a balance between them. And when there isn't a balance because there's constant ongoing stress, like your experience as caregivers, there's this constant ongoing stress, then what happens is that our sympathetic nervous system is in high gear and our parasympathetic nervous system is not being activated. So our parasympathetic is, our constricting of our pupils, our slow heart rate, our digestive system stimulated properly, right? Everything in our body is relaxed and back to a baseline of calm, resting, digesting, normal baseline, okay? So these are the 2 active systems. What's wonderful about our bodies is that we have the ability to actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's essentially what we're going to talk about today, is how do we do that? Because if we know this stress response is happening in our body continuously, then we want to be able to find a way to counteract that so that the development of anxiety or panic doesn't continue within us if it's already started. So while, the sympathetic nervous system tells our body, yes, there is danger, you're in danger, there is something dangerous here, right? Again, whether it's a physical or an emotional stressor, our parasympathetic sends the message to our body, it's all okay, everything's okay. So as I said before, there's ways, the remarkable thing is that there are ways that we can actually activate our parasympathetic system. What I have here is a list of some of those, so we can, get a massage. That is something that by stimulating certain parts of our body, we are activating the parasympathetic nerve endings that are in our body. We're also bringing ourselves to a state of relaxation, right? Which activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So our mind and our bodies are connected, right? They play in on each other. Our mind can send the message to our body, there is a danger, right? Like this emotional stressor. And our body can send the message to our mind, no, you're safe. And that's what an example of getting a massage, practicing meditation, deep breathing from the diaphragm. So taking really deep internal breaths. One of the tricks used is if you feel your stomach expand, then you've done a proper deep breath, right? A deep breath into your diaphragm, right? You want to focus on a word that's soothing. So that's, again, using your mind to send a different message to your body. So they both play on each other. Practicing yoga, exercising, trying progressive relaxation, right? So tensing and releasing the tension within your body at different points. So what are you doing there? When you're tensing, your body is getting the message, there is a stressor, there is something, things are not okay. And when you're relaxing, you're sending the message, no, they are okay. So that active tense and release. Doing something that you enjoy, just anything, whether it's you enjoy crocheting or you enjoy going for a walk, you enjoy playing piano, you enjoy listening to music, any of the above are activating a different system, this parasympathetic nervous system within our body. Being present in our activities, which we're going to talk more about today within the concept of mindfulness, using visualization to actually visualize a place that's pleasant for you, right? Remembering that really nice trip you had 2 years ago to a nice and sunny and warm place. That visualization brings your mind into another zone and can activate your parasympathetic nervous system. One of the ones that I found so interesting is that gently touching your lips. Your lips have many parasympathetic nerve endings in them. And so by gently rubbing your finger across your lips, you can activate that calming system within your body. So there's a number of different ways that we can work to incorporate some of these activities into our life so that we can work to activate our parasympathetic nervous system more frequently. One mindfulness practice has so many different components of some of that list that we've just talked about, and that's why I wanted to focus today's webinar on that in particular, because it really touches on so many of the different areas. So mindfulness means maintaining a moment-to-moment awareness of our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and surrounding environment through a gentle, nurturing lens. That gentle is going to become very important, and we'll talk more about that. When we practice mindfulness, our thoughts tune into what we are sensing in the present moment, rather than rehashing the past or imagining the future. So in the last slide, when I spoke about living in the present moment, that is one component that mindfulness really incorporates into its practice, that really lends to this activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. Deep breathing that you can do and different activities that you can do, really using every aspect of your senses, your thoughts, and your senses to focus on what is right in front of me in this moment. What am I choosing to focus on? In this moment, there is no danger. That does something to your biological system, and that's what we want to key in on. So some mindfulness activities that can engender some of this in us is deep breathing, visualizations, yoga, meditation, progressive relaxation, being present. These are all mindfulness activities that, as you can see, correlate with that other list that we just talked about activities that activate that parasympathetic nervous system. And that's why we want to focus on, if we can practice mindfulness, we can incorporate so many of these different activities that help us to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's really the key here. That's what we want to focus on. So I want to take the time to just go through some examples of mindfulness-based exercises. And for some of you that, have experience with mindfulness, these might be things that you already practice. And there's so many different examples, right? But I just wanted to focus on a few to just understand, how are these supporting us in being able to, first of all, engender a state of mindfulness. And second of all, counteract so much of the stress response, these hormones that are happening inside of us, right? And I want you to kind of think as we're going through them to remember that that's really the key, right? You are living in a situation of extreme stress, right? Whether it's active at every moment, whether it's in the worries and the fears of what you might need to encounter with your loved one, or whether it's in the active day-to-day involvement because facing right in front of you is a situation of chaos or fear or intense emotions, right? So whether it's an active situation that you're engaged in or, more something that's going on in your mind in terms of worries and fears, right? Of what's that interaction going to look like, the guilt and the anger and anxiety that we talked about in previous weeks, those, as we said there, those are mental stressors. It's important to try to relieve some of those. And that's why we focused on them in the last few weeks, because those are mental stressors that do the same thing to your body as an active situation that's happening, right? So again, very important to remember whether it's a mental stressor, a physical stressor, an emotional stressor, they all cause this stress response within our body. So we're going to go through some of these, and I want you to think about, if any of them speak to you, where in your day could you possibly incorporate some of these practices? Because the key is to try to create a situation where the more times that we are activating our parasympathetic nervous system throughout the day or week, right? The more times we're doing that, the more times that our sympathetic nervous system is not at play, right? It's this or that, we're resting or digesting, or we're fighting and flighting. And so when we have so many external stressors that are happening, we want to look at, okay, how do we incorporate some of these other experiences that can sort of balance it out of it? Because these two systems should be in balance, right? And right now in our lives, with all the stressors, it's not in balance. And so we have the opportunity, though, to create more balance. So the first one is focusing on the breath. The breath is a really powerful tool. As I mentioned before, it's a way of sending a message to your mind, using your body to send a message to your mind that things are actually okay. One of the things that happens when your sympathetic nervous system is activated is that your breathing becomes more shallow, right? Imagine you're running, you're being chased, your breath becomes more shallow, right? Because your heart's pumping faster. That's, biologically what's happening. And so by using your breath to sort of simulate your parasympathetic nervous system mode, you actually send that message to your mind. Okay. And that's why people feel this sense of calm when they, when they're doing deep breathing. So one technique that I love that you might have heard me talk about if you're in any of the groups is 4 square breathing. Square breathing, which is a 4-sided, 4 steps and 4 counts, right? Just like a square has 4 sides. So if you imagine in your mind, or you can actually use your finger to trace, you want to imagine that each side of the square is even in timing. And for each side is a count of 4. So what we're going to be doing is breathing in for a count of 4. So that's, and then we're going to hold the breath for a count of 4. So you're going to breathe in. And then you're going to breathe out for a count of 4. So breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, out for a count of 4. And the last side of the square is sort of a pause in between each breath. And what you want to do is try to do 4 counts of 4 at any point in the day. I have an alarm set on my phone, and some of you might have heard this from me already, that says, you know, do your 4 counts of 4. It's just a reminder to stop whatever I'm doing and take these breaths, right? So again, it's you're breathing in for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, and waiting for a count of 4. And you're doing this in 4 cycles, right? So, you know, this takes, you know, whatever it is, 16 seconds times 4, very minimal amount of time in your day. But that pause is a moment where you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, where you're sending a message to your mind, things are calm, you're okay. This is a peaceful situation and everything's okay, right? And even if that's only temporary, that doesn't cause it to lose its value. The value is in the practice. It's not just in whether or not the stressor disappears, right? And that's the important part, I think, as caregivers, that we often can't change the situation that we're living in, but what we can change is other things that we can introduce into that environment that support us in being able to manage it better. So that's just one example of a deep breathing exercise. There are so many that you can access. YouTube is a great resource for any mindfulness practices, and we'll talk more about some of those. But there are so many different options of breathing exercises, and you can search up a guided breathing exercise and, you know, do what works for you. I like this one because it's just easy to remember, and it's easy to access whenever you want. You don't have to be listening to somebody guiding that breath. The next one that I wanted to talk about is the body scan. So essentially what that means is that you would, you know, lie on your bed or the floor or wherever you find comfortable. You could do it sitting in a chair. It's just easier to focus in that lying position, as you see the ladies on the screen are doing. And you're going to move your awareness through your body, focusing one area at a time. And whenever you find an area that's unusually tight or tense or sore, so you want to focus your breath more in that area. So if you have any back pain or leg pain or feet pain, or if you just want to bring an overall sense of calm to your body, so you know, to close your eyes, and again, you can find guided practices of this online from anywhere spanning from 5 minutes to an hour at length, and everything in between, depending on how much time you want to spend doing this. I find this practice is great for you know, at night, for people that have trouble falling asleep. It's a great way to get yourself in the right mode, you know, at that time, and help relax you, a full body relaxation. So you're just bringing awareness, you know, from head to toe, one area at a time. Like bring awareness into your mind, into your head, into your face, and breathe into that space. And it will just go through one part of your body at a time. So it's called body scan, and you can search that as well on YouTube. Another option is something called object meditation. And essentially, you know, the mindfulness concept that it's really engendering is using all your senses, or whichever sense this object intensely focuses on, to bring yourself to a place of practicing focus. Now, again, all of these different practices, and the ones that we'll talk about more, is learning to focus your attention actively on what you would like it to focus on. We're going to talk soon about the different conceptual aspects of mindfulness, right? The cognitive aspects, right? The thought process aspects. But in practice, the actual practice and process of focusing your attention on a specific thing and choosing to focus your attention there as opposed to all the other things is a practice that allows your mind to get into the habit of doing that and being able to build that muscle. The muscle of focus and attention is something that needs to be built. And so the more you incorporate any of these practices into your day, the more you can work on that muscle that will be able to be used within your thought process as well, and being able to choose to focus on one feeling or emotion as opposed to another. And that's that muscle we're building through all of these practices, aside from the practice of being present, aside from the breathing and what that does and the relaxation and what that does. It also builds this muscle of focus and attention on areas that we want to. So with the breath, we're focusing on our breathing. With the body scan, we're focusing on whichever area of the body we're bringing attention and relaxation to. And with this object meditation, we're focusing on whatever that object is in front of you. You can be, something that you have that feels nice and soft. It can be an object that has a good scent to it. And so you're using whichever sense is activated through this object to really focus your attention. So you're taking this time to say, okay, here's this really nice fabric that I have, and I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to look at it, its shape, its size, its color, its texture, its smell, its taste, if that's relevant, or its sound, if it's a sound that, if it's activity that involves sound. And as you're manipulating, you're putting your attention and focus onto that object. Okay, and that's, again, something you can do anywhere at any time, because you just pick up something that's interesting or that has texture or that has meaning or anything for you. The next practice is mindful eating. So this really, you can also use different senses with it, right? With eating, you're not just using taste. You can use sight, and you can use scent, and you can use touch, depending on what it is. But really, you're focusing on, like the previous exercise, you can use all your senses, but you're focusing on each individual aspect of the eating process, right? And this is something that you can, incorporate in your morning coffee or tea, or you can incorporate as part of your, when you have your lunch, just to even take a few minutes to slow down and to focus on what you're doing. It really shifts the way that you look at the process of eating and the way you experience the process of eating. I've worked with so many people who say, like, I don't even realize when I'm eating. Like, I don't even realize when it's over. Like, I start eating and then it's done. Or I don't even feel full after. And that's because we're not fully present in the experience, right? So if you are eating something and then your attention is somewhere else, then your body might not have experienced that to the fullest extent. It's actually used, mindful eating is a practice that's used with nutritionists to help people balance their diets better, because they're actually more aware of what they're eating, right? So, but for our purposes, the benefit is in putting our focus and attention on a specific experience. So what that would mean is, what's commonly used with mindfulness is a raisin. So you take a raisin and you feel it in your fingers, the bumps and the texture in your hand, and you might smell it and see what it smells like, the scent, things that we don't even typically notice, right? So many times. And then as you'll taste it, you'll focus on the sensation in your mouth as you chew it, and then sensation as it goes down your throat and as you feel it filling your stomach, right? And with every bite or every part of the eating process, whether you're eating or you're drinking or whatever it is, let's say you're holding a cup of tea or coffee, so you can focus on the warmth in your hands and the scent of the coffee or the steam rising in your face, right? So you're choosing a few moments of that eating process to intently focus your attention on that process. The last one I have here is mindful stretching. So that's often used in association with yoga, but it can really be with any exercise that you do. So it's, again, focusing on the sensation of the exercise, the stretching, whatever it may be, focusing your attention on that sensation as you're doing it, right? So any of these practices, you can look at now. If you remember, I said kind of think about how you can incorporate this into your daily routine. It's, we don't have to kind of take on the load of, okay, I'm exercising later today, for that hour, I'm going to be mindfully exercising. Take 5 minutes, take the first 5 minutes of eating or of exercising or of whatever you're doing, and just use that time to try to refocus. Keep refocusing. And the refocus is really a crucial part, because the success of mindfulness practice is in the re-shifting of our mind to the activity when it strays. Our mind is supposed to stray. It's not supposed to stay intently focused on one activity at a time. It doesn't. If you've ever, sat there and noticed your thoughts running in your mind, if you've ever done meditation, you will very well know that your mind is going to continue to wander consistently throughout the process. And the point is not in successively focusing intently and strongly the entire time. The success is in reshifting your mind back to where you want to put your attention every time it strays. Okay, so not in, I got it, I focused the entire 5 minutes, I didn't take my mind off of it for a minute. No, it's in reshifting your focus. So your mind strays from whatever activity it is or whatever thought process it is, and then you bring your attention back. Okay. So as I said before, there's some foundational attitudes of mindfulness, ways that we conceptualize mindfulness and the practice of mindfulness. And Kabat-Zinn, who is the creator of mindfulness, kind of established these 7 foundational attitudes that are integral to the practice of mindfulness, and specifically for the purpose of stress reduction. So the first one is non-judgment. And what that means is that, and these are all, again, in the mind frame you have with relation to the activity of mindfulness practice. So what is my mindset going to be as I'm engaging in these practices, right? So we spoke about this piece of our mind's going to wander and we're going to refocus, right? So the non-judgment means that we are sort of like an impartial witness to what's happening. We're not being judgmental of ourselves in the engagement in these practices. We're not judging ourselves. Oh, look at you. You weren't able to focus. You're here, your mind is wandering to all these stressful things. You're taking a stance of non-judgment towards yourself. You're witnessing what's happening without judgment. And these are really crucial attitudes to think about when we start looking at how mindfulness can be incorporated into our thinking and our thought processes, because it's about considering the fact that when we can be a witness to our mindset, then it creates a whole different experience when we start feeling negative emotions. The next one is having patience with ourselves. And that's it's a form of wisdom that allows us to give ourselves the space and the time to have experiences. So it gives us permission to experience things without, again, that judgment, but patience with ourselves to say, right now I'm feeling sad, or right now I'm having a hard time focusing, and that's okay. And I'm going to look at that with patience and non-judgment. Another aspect is a beginner's mind. So that's a mindset that's you're sort of willing to experience everything for the first time, like a little child that gets excited about each new thing. That's how we want to relate to our thoughts. And all of these are going to become a lot more clear as we move forward. We're going to do a short mindfulness practice. And I want you to keep these in mind, this concept of, a beginner's mind. I'm experiencing these feelings and emotions and thoughts for the first time. Another one is trust. And trust, it means having trust in yourself. So it's about respecting and honoring your knowledge and experience, right? So if I'm feeling a certain way, we don't have to doubt that. We don't have to think, oh no, am I supposed to be feeling this way? Should I be feeling this way, right? We want to trust our own experience of a situation. Another one is non-striving. So rather than, the state that we're usually in, which is, okay, we got to get this done, we got to move, we have to go, there's things to do, right? Mindfulness practice is not about this goal, right? Like I said before, it's not about this, oh, look at me, I focus the whole time. It's about just engaging in the activity for the activity itself and not for the purpose of reaching a specific goal at that time. And the last two I'm going to put together are acceptance and letting go. So what that means is seeing things sort of in the moment, rather than like what you would like them to be, or the way that you're interpreting them. It's rather just sort of seeing things as they come, noticing them for what they are, and just sort of witnessing them, right? Witnessing our experience with this beginner's mind that we just talked about, rather than having a specific goal in mind. And that goes along with acceptance as well, because you're looking at, not what you want the situation to look like, but just at what it is. And that letting go is then intentionally releasing control of the situation to allow ourselves to just participate in it. So there's a poem that's often used in with mindfulness called The Guest House. And it's a poem by Rumi that really puts understanding to this concept of acceptance and within mindfulness practice. And I'm just going to read this to you now. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. You can find this online. It's called The Guest House, and it's by Rumi. You can just search the two and you'll find it, the poem. And I think you can see through this poem so many of the different concepts of mindfulness practice that we just spoke about. When we have emotions that are coming towards us, they're firing rapidly at us, anger and anxieties and worries and fears and anger. It's like imagining them and knocking at the door of your house, right? And often what we do is we try to push them out. We don't want to see them, right? We don't want to engage with them. But what we do when we close that door is we close that door to positive emotions as well. We close the door to positive experiences as well. And what this poem is trying to bring out is that by letting these emotions in, they could be clearing us out for a new experience, a better experience, right? And this concept of acceptance means that each experience that we have, each emotion that we have, as they come into our lives, as they come into our minds, when we can relate to them with this sense of acceptance, non-judgment, a beginner's mind, it's sort of like a curiosity, like, oh, there's anger. What does that mean? That's interesting. Let me see how this plays out. Let me be this observer on this emotion, and it creates this distance between us and the emotion. It allows us to let go of emotions in a different way when we don't relate to them with such intensity, when we're not working so hard to keep them out, but we're letting them come into our sphere and we're engaging with them as they come. And so the concept of acceptance within mindfulness and for our lives, it turns out to be really one of the most helpful attitudes I find with mindfulness, because it means that you're perceiving your experience and just simply acknowledging it rather than judging it. Mindfulness is so much of mindfulness is based on the concept that just because we have a thought, it doesn't mean we need to engage in it. We can watch this thought pass by us and we can choose to engage in it, or we can choose to not, right? So as it comes into our mind frame, we can say, oh, there's anger. And we can also choose to let it go, right? And so that's what acceptance is about. It's saying, I'm not going to judge this as good or bad, or, I'm not going to attach meaning to it. I'm not going to attach a negative association with it. I'm just going to notice that it's there and allow it to pass however it does pass, in whichever way it does. So in order to accomplish this, you really have to learn how to separate yourself from your thoughts, create that distance that we were talking about, and not get caught up in our thoughts and allow them to dictate the way that we choose to function. So that first step of doing that is being able to engage with our thoughts as this visitor, right? That this poem is trying to bring forward as this guest that's just coming in, and oh, there it is. But you know what? Our houses also have a back door. And just like we let them in, we can also choose to let them out. So I wanted to really bring these concepts home with a short practice. And I believe that you'll be sent, if you haven't already, an audio clip of this. It's not me recorded on it. It's somebody else who recorded this Leaves on a Stream. So if you are able to just get into a comfortable position, you can put your feet on the floor, on the ground, or you can sit cross-legged if that's more comfortable. But if you can kind of close your eyes and just allow yourself to give yourself a few moments to sort of engage in this practice, and I think it will really help to bring home some of the concepts that we spoke about. So if you're sitting with your feet on the floor, then try to focus your attention on the sensation of the floor touching your feet. And gently close your eyes, and for the next few breaths, bring your full focus of your attention to your breathing. So breathe slowly in and out. Notice the feeling of the air flowing in through your nostrils, down into your lungs, down deep into your belly as you inhale. And on the exhale, feel the release of any tension that you might be holding as you let the air out slowly. So if you find yourself holding tension in your shoulders, in your legs, in your back, in your hands, with your next breath, just let that tension in that area go. Let yourself relax into your seat. Now imagine that you're sitting by the side of a gently flowing stream. This might be a stream that you know, somewhere you've been before, or it might be something that you create in your mind using your imagination. There might be a light breeze blowing as you sit here. You might see some light glistening on the water. Perhaps there's some grass beneath you or some trees. You can imagine the stream however you like. There's no right way, it's just your imagination. Now imagine that there are leaves floating on the surface of the stream. And these leaves are gently flowing past you down the stream. For the next few moments, see if you can take every thought that pops into your head and place it on a leaf. Now your thoughts may show up in your mind in the form of words or pictures or something else. However, as a thought arises, simply place it on a leaf and let it float by. You can do this regardless of whether the thoughts are positive and pleasant and enjoyable, or if they're negative and challenging. You can simply place each thought on a leaf and let it flow down the stream. If you notice that your thoughts stop momentarily, just continue to watch the stream. Sooner or later, your thoughts will start up again. Allow the stream to flow at its own rate. There is no need to try to speed it up or slow it down. The aim here is not to wash the leaves away. The aim is to allow them to come and go in their own time, and just to sit and watch as an observer to what's happening as they come. If your mind says something along the lines of, I can't do it, this is stupid, you can place those thoughts on the leaves as well and let them float by. If a leaf gets stuck, let it hang around. There's no need to force it to float away. Simply watch it And sooner or later, another leaf will come along and give it the nudge it needs. If a difficult feeling arises, such as boredom, impatience, anxiety, simply acknowledge it. Say to yourself, here is a feeling of boredom. Here is a feeling of impatience. And here is a feeling of anxiety. And just place those words on a leaf. Now, from time to time, your thoughts might hook you, and you will lose track of the exercise. This is totally normal, as our attention naturally wanders, and it will happen time and time again. There is nothing wrong with that. Just as soon as you realize that this has happened, just simply come back to your stream, gently turning your attention towards the water and the leaves again. Continue again to place each thought that pops into your mind on a leaf and watch it slip by. Take the thought, place it on a leaf, and watch it float away. Again and again, your thoughts will hook you. And remember, this is normal. As soon as you notice this has happened, simply come back to your stream. As the exercise comes to an end, begin to let go of your imagined stream and bring your attention back to where we are. Notice what you can hear, what you can feel, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and notice what you can see. You might like another minute to sit quietly, holding on to the sense of presence, attention, and spaciousness in your thinking. So I hope you were able to see from this practice some of the concepts we spoke about in terms of being a witness to our emotions and our thoughts, engaging with them a bit differently in terms of not judging them, not thinking they need to be a certain way or look a certain way, but rather just in engaging with them as they are, whatever they are, whenever they come, and not having a rigidity within ourselves to have to focus on the stream intently, because that's not the goal. The goal is just to continuously bring our attention back to where we want to focus. And the other idea is to allow ourselves to live in the moments of what we're experiencing, right? Bringing ourselves to that place whenever we can creates a sense of focus and attention on where we want our minds to be, as opposed to where they might be drifting and taking us in any given situation. And there are many such practices. Again, YouTube is your best friend when it comes to these things. Another one that I often like to use is something called the eye of the storm. I mentioned it in a video that I did for the OCO around the beginning of COVID, in terms of, all the chaos that happens around us in our lives and being able to find an inner place of peace. That's something that I can send out to anyone who's interested, and another audio clip or something that you can find online as well, and an Eye of the Storm meditation. Pulled up on the screen here are some suggested resources. There's two links, but you can just really search mindful eating, healthy habit, and a 3-minute body scan, just a short, quick thing that you can do at any time in the day. These are two practices. There's also the mindful caregiver and the mindful caregiving approach, which specifically relate to how to implement mindfulness with caregiving. Unfortunately, these aren't available right now in French, but hopefully they will be one day. But the mindfulness practices you could definitely access online in French as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mihal. Mindfulness is so important for caregivers with everything being so chaotic and stressful. So those were some really good practical tips. Thank you again.